How's it going, YouTube? Coincidence. Today's another video, and today, guys, what we're bringing to you is going to be the brand new meta update within the brand new Yu-Gi-Oh outlet. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this video because of the fact that there's so many new meta trends that you really need to be aware of going into the NAWCQ and any potential further tournaments you have before then. This is extremely important, and I hope that you get a lot of info out of this video because these are things that you might lose to had you not known about them. If you haven't already checked out my sponsors over on RW, Cloud, Gem, Arla, Imperium, Dragonshield, and Grimoire, definitely go to do so all down below in the description. Hey all, so you've definitely seen Arla on my channel lately, and I love board games, and I was overly thrilled when they came to me about their new game. This is something made by duelists for duelists, and I just love the fact that you have such diverse movement in a board game of all things, right? It just is a really cool addition and element to the game. You have a ton of different roles to choose from, and I really love the Wizard because it gives you additional RNG as far as getting to cards that you really need to progress in the game. It's really cool, and as an English major, I just love the very first line here. Just a once peaceful kingdom has now fallen into chaos for the first time in 1,000 years. And, you know, this is going to be your own role to start your own journey to try to get things back in order. And, you know, the only question I have for you now is, are you ready to play Monster Cash Race? Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more information. I post so much informational content, and I love hearing about all your tops, all your invites, everything that y'all are getting from these videos. I appreciate it so much. Let's hit 25,000 within the next 2 weeks. That'd be so amazing. Subscribe. Let's hop right into our first slide. So to get things started here, we have the out. And realistically, Exis Encore is sadly the only out that we really have for Featherstorm. Why is this card not banned yet? I really don't know. But cast out hits the board and they have a set card, you know that you are in for it. So you need to make sure that you have Exis Encore because this deck is so popular and they will have this. People are setting 3 Thrust and 3 Featherstorm to make sure that they do see this card. And you need some kind of an out to make sure that this is not going to be a problem. But at the end of the day, it has seen a lot less popularity lately, so that's something where you can kind of roll the dice if you don't want to run a card like the Exis Encore. It is pretty solid right now because it does answer a few things, but it's not very generically good, so I don't love running this card on my side because there's always other things that you can run in place just to help you out in other scenarios throughout your entire tournament, whereas this seems very specific and it might not be that great. Now for our weekend winners, we have the Italian national event that was won by Memento. This deck is so scary. If you know what you're doing with this deck, you can just beat through so many boards and just win so many matches because the deck itself can even play around Charmies like it's no one's business. Bone Party allowing you to summon from deck or add to hand is crazy because you activate Bone Party, they change Fua, you're like, that's cool, I'm gonna add horse and summon horse, right? So there's just so many different things that you can do to make sure that you just don't lose to these really unique scenarios in today's game where we didn't think we'd have another Maxi, but now we kind of do. And, you know, Memento is still one of those decks, too, that just has so many utility slots and so many ways to dodge between Breakout and Bone Party. The cards themselves are all really good. Everything just, like, activates when they're destroyed. The deck itself is really underrated, and no one really reads the cards, I think, because this has already won 2 YCSs before Allen format, and it just won the Italian Nationals. And people still don't put enough respect on this to, like, really understand what the deck does, right? And, you know, even if you do, it's still a very scary deck to play against that has a ton of layered interruption. Denmark was won by Crystron Horus, another deck that no one's really reading the cards. They're just kind of letting things happen. Yes, the end board is Infinity Dragster Tristaros. Super Poly is an amazing way to answer that end board, right? Just make the big monster, swing over Tristaros, and then you have a great time into the rest of whatever they're trying to do, right? So there's a lot of different ways you can go ahead and handle that deck, but you really have to make sure that you're putting in the hours and the time to go ahead and play against some of these other matchups that aren't just Mitsurai, they aren't just Malice, because these decks will pop up. And another deck that's been popping up a ton is Pure Mitsurugi. 60 card Pure Mitsurugi or Triff just won the Toronto Regional. And, you know, this is one of those things where you really have to understand that the Pure Mitsurugi deck is really popular right now and has a lot of very good options into the format. The other thing that was really surprising was Yubel won Santa Clara, and it loses the worst to Molcharmies, Droll, Ash on Lotus. Like, there's so many scenarios where Yubel just kind of loses. But if you don't have those cards, you might lose because this was Yubel, Fiendsmith, Kashtira, which hasn't really changed from what the original build was. But the deck itself has a lot of ways to play. it is hurt right now because there's only one Phantom and it makes things a little awkward sometimes. But the deck can play very well. And so that's one thing where I've even talked about it before. I'm like, this could be a really good call for Nats just because of the fact that, like, no one really remembers, like, too much about what the deck does, nor are they siding cards to affect it directly. So you can kind of catch a lot of people off guard with playing something like Yubel because a lot of people were like, oh, I forgot this was a thing. I didn't practice against this. What do I do, right? Hopefully you go back and watch the Where to Hand Traps, before Nationals. But, we're just hoping that, when you go to Nationals, you have a great event and you play something that you're very comfortable with, that you think that you have the spice. And, that's something where this player went to Santa Clara and they're like, I have the spice, and they won with Yubel. Pretty crazy. Pure Mitsurugi took up so many spots in top cuts this week, and it's actually kind of crazy. The amount of things that you have to keep track of is kind of crazy too. You have to know if they've already used like the graveyard effect of Habakiri, Mirakumo, Futso, and just really paying attention to like what effects have been used, what effects haven't been used. One of the things that came up at the regional was I saved my very last negate off cross just for Mirakumo's Regeki, and it won me the game right there, which is crazy because that's one of the things where you kind of have to understand what your biggest out is and then play to your out, negate the one thing that's going to be the problem. This is, again, the Dragoon theory versus talent. The only thing you're negating with Dragoon if they can't out it is talent, because it's the only card that outs it, right? So that's the huge thing that you really got to pay attention to. And just because this is getting so popular right now, people are playing this in the sideboards. This is really common right now. Mistaken Arrest is a 3-of in the sideboard. People are manning 3 Droll in the main. And it's just so imperative that you have these cards to shut decks like this down, because if you don't, they can gain a lot of advantage very quickly. Make sure that you're watching out when you play against Mermail, because of the fact that if you let them go to battle phase, they aren't mating evenly. They aren't siding evenly. You know what they're siding? Anti-magic arrows. You know what this card does? You go, main phase is cool, battle phase is fine, and you don't use any of your back row. Your opponent goes, player priority, battle phase, start step, anti-magic arrows. Neither player can use spells and traps for the rest of the turn. I'm killing you. Like, I'm just ripping your hand and tearing apart your board. That's super scary. So that's something that you want to make sure that you are on top of. This is a card that Mermail is playing. It is a very strong card, and it's something that if you are unprepared for it and your opponent's trying to go battle phase, now you know why they're trying to go battle phase. As much as I don't like to see it, 6 is standard now for Molcharmies in the main deck. It's usually 3 Fua and 3 Perulia. And this is just to make sure that if you are going second, that you just absolutely shut your opponent down, right? If you see 1 of each or 2 of each, it's one of those things where, like, you are going to draw some cards. You are absolutely drawing some cards. And that is pretty crazy, too, that, like, these cards are just, like, so overbearingly strong. And I'm definitely interested to see what kind of ban list we'll get after everything's all said and done. But these cards are definitely a little obnoxious, especially Perulia being still $70 is kind of awful. But, if they're more accessible, I think that it might be a little bit better. But for now, this is what you're dealing with. You're playing against 6 Charmies in the main deck usually, and 3 Muals on the side. So just make sure that you are prepared for that in your deck building. You should be able to put up some kind of half board in these situations. The flip side of the coin is going to be, you should be on cards like Featherstorm to make sure that you can pass and your opponent just cannot play the game, right? Protos, for being known as the big bad, coming back in full swing with Escachados in the side deck as well. Kind of scary. A lot of times people are not even playing Banshee or Flag. They're just hard drawing Protos or Escachados post side game 2 or 3 when they're going second. They're breaking the entire board and then dropping one or the other. Even in Rizeal, you can go Accent Baguska, so you have the additional attribute, the Earth Engrave, to summon one of these. Because against Malice, a lot of times you're just baiting every negation out, and then you're summoning Protos called Dark. And your opponent literally cannot play the game anymore. Kind of insane. But that is something that we are seeing. Escachados, of course, is calling things like the Pyro or Thunder, depending on what's on board. You can also just call Dragon into things like Blue Eyes, which is pretty crazy. Some people are playing like Reprodocus if you're playing a deck that's not like Rizeal, Or if they really want to, just going like ice summon something else, summon Reproducus, but that's not really that good. But we are seeing Protos in many different decks right now, which is kind of scary because the card is very strong. If you did enjoy today's video, definitely go ahead and join my Twitch, Twitter, Discord, Instagram, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already so we can hit 25,000 in the next 2 weeks. I'd appreciate it so very much. And I'll catch you all in the next video. Thank you.